this foreclosure crisis. 9 million people lost their jobs because of the Great Recession, and 5 million homes were lost. And I put the responsibility squarely on the Republicans. And I don't say that to be partisan. I say it because, during those 8 years, there were a lot of things that could be done that were not done to try to help people.
Hillary Clinton placing the blame for the 2008 crisis and the recession that followed on the Republican Party. Not being partisan, of course, economist is Steve Moore right beside me here in New York. So great to see you here first.
There was nothing at all partisan in that statement. It is all the Republicans'
fault. Actually, that was good humor, though. Like, she's got to do it. But, I mean, there's enough blame to go around, right? I mean, there's bankers at the institutional level. There's local bankers. There's mortgage brokers. There's also people not taking responsibility for their own budgets. But do you think she's saying this, I mean, aside from obviously being on the campaign trail, but so she doesn't blame anybody on Wall Street?
So a couple things about this. One is, I don't think the American people have forgotten about what happened in 2008 and 9. And I think a lot of Republicans would like to pretend that, that it's all forgotten. But it's not forgotten. And I actually don't really blame Republicans so much for the crisis because, as you said, I mean, everybody's the mortgage bankers, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, people who took out these bad mortgages. I think Republicans still have a problem in explaining to the American people what they did and why they did it in that time of crisis, all the bailouts, because those bailouts are not popular to this day with the American people. But for Hillary to say, look, it's all Republican, I don't know if she was tongue-in-cheek when she was saying that.
Can I just stop you? Why doesn't a Republican come out and say, you know what, taxpayers, you didn't lose money? Like, people are obsessed with this idea, but they actually didn't. Taxpayers did not lose money. Well,
they did on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And the whole idea that Wall Street got bailed out and a lot of, community banks and so on that suffered, look, I think it was a mistake. I think the bailouts were a big problem. But I will say this. Hillary's saying, oh, it's all Republicans' fault. Wait a minute. Her husband was president when we did Glass-Steagall reform.
Right.
Her husband was the one who dramatically expanded, remember, the Community Reinvestment Act. That was a federal law that actually encouraged and required banks to make loans to marginal lenders. And it turns out a lot of those loans went sour. So plenty of blame to go around. I think it was a kind of a foolish statement. I don't think most Americans think it was just the Republicans' fault.
Well,
but here we are 8 years later, the Democrats are still blaming everything on George W. Bush.
Right, but it completely, and to your point, Bill Clinton, her husband, was just as much of an architect in that as George
Now, there's
Bush.
Another issue here, though. And I've been writing about this. People aren't paying enough attention. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the Federal Housing Administration, all these federal agencies, they are right back doing exactly the same things they were doing in 2005 and 6 and 7.
Right.
So you've got a lot of mortgages that are carrying with them 100% taxpayer guarantees with Fannie and Freddie and FHA, 3% down payment mortgages.
But then why can't Ben Bernanke, former chairman of the Fed, get a mortgage?
Well, I wrote a column the same thing. I couldn't get a mortgage, and I was putting 25% down payment on my loan. And the only people who are getting mortgages is people who don't qualify under the normal
well,
rules.
we expect an invitation to a barbecue.
So this pendulum, it used to be 10 years ago, all you had to do is walk in a bank and get a mortgage. And now it's the exact opposite. It's really difficult to get a loan from a bank.
All right, and I'm glad you corrected me on the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. I actually forgot about that part, but I meant the big three and the banking as well. I mean, but yes, net, probably.
And Fannie and Freddie and FHA, I'll say it again, are doing exactly what they were doing in 2005, 6, and 7. I watched that movie, The Big Short. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And remember, but at the end, they say, oh, have we learned any lessons from what happened? The answer is no, because the government is doing exactly what they did 7 or 8 years ago.
All right, come back, Steve Moore. More to talk about. As always, Steve Moore, economist, with me there.